Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for attending the Illinois Office of the Auditor General Virtual Job Fair event. I would like to introduce you to Jim. Jim will tell you about his organization, job openings, and how to apply for those openings. Jim, are you available to present?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Daniel, for the opportunity to be here today and to discuss with everyone for a few minutes about uh, possible vacancies with the Illinois Office of the Auditor General. And again, my name is Jim Dahlquist, and I have worked for the Illinois Auditor General's office for a little over 25 years now. The time has certainly flown. Started as a performance auditor, then I was a performance audit supervisor, and for about the last 20 years, I have been manager of training and recruitment. Let me start by saying that a job in auditing I have always found to be interesting because it gives you a chance to utilize not only traditional accounting skills, but we hire certainly a lot more than accountants. So we're looking for people with good analytical skills, good problem solving skills, good communication skills, can work well within a team environment. And as an auditor, inherently, you're going to run across very interesting scenarios. So, for example, we have found, for example, university presidents who were perhaps misusing the corporate credit card, taking people out to dinner, which is allowed, but then also buying liquor for them, which is a no-no with the state of Illinois. And there have been individuals who have perhaps abused state vehicles, taking them to other locations that did not have to do with work, things of that nature. But the Auditor General's office is what you might consider a watchdog for the state of Illinois. We audit all the state agencies and universities in Illinois. We're an arm of the Illinois General Assembly, and they will use our audit reports to make sure that those agencies are complying with state law, they're spending their money appropriately, and, again, not buying things like alcohol for other individuals. So it actually states right in the Illinois Constitution that the Auditor General shall conduct the audit of public funds of the state and make reports and investigations as directed by the Illinois General Assembly. And then those reports go directly to the General Assembly and the governor's office. Now, I don't put this slide up here to bore anyone or give you a civics lesson, but it's to demonstrate the stability of our job. When it's directly put into the Constitution that these audits be done, our staff has a lot of latitude and benefits that sometimes even exceed other state agencies. So to kind of help explain how the Auditor General's office fits in with the rest of the state, so we're a constitutional office, just like the Secretary of State, the Governor, the Attorney General. The reason most people have not heard of the Auditor General, though, is that all of those constitutional officers in the executive branch, they have to run for office every 4 years. For example, Jesse White, not only has he been the auditor or the Secretary of State for 20 plus years, he also has to get his name out on billboards and radio and television ads every 4 years. Now, in contrast, the Auditor General is appointed to a 10-year term by members of the Illinois General Assembly. And it was designed specifically to allow our office the freedom to conduct their audits independently and without there being any political interference. And that is a huge benefit when you hear, for example, that any governor might want to merge two agencies together to try and save money. Well, we're a constitutional office, so that is not an option. Also, you will sometimes hear that there is a state hiring freeze or there's a budget constraint. Again, those are issues that fortunately do not affect the Auditor General's office. So we realize people may not want to stay their entire career in one location. It's certainly understandable. There's a lot of opportunities out there in the world. But if somebody does choose to stay, you can work your entire career in our office because we are a nonpartisan agency, which means we're not affected by shifts in the political current or changes in administration. So we have had people who have started as interns and worked their way all the way up to director positions and have stayed their entire career with our office. So those who, of course, don't stay with the office have been able to springboard into some other really nice positions in state government because of the reputation of our office. There we go. So our office is set up pretty traditional org chart with the Auditor General as our lead, and we have a chief of staff that works directly with the Auditor General, as well as our legal counsel and our fiscal officer. We have about 100 total staff, going from our administrative and intern staff all the way up to our directors and Auditor General. We have an office in Chicago and an office in Springfield. Most of our vacancies are traditionally in Springfield. Even though Chicago is, of course, a much bigger city, most of the agencies are headquartered in the state's capital of Springfield, and that's why Springfield is more of our hub here. So most of our staff are made up of auditors in either our financial compliance audit division or our performance audit division. And the majority of the people who are in our financial compliance division are going to have their accounting degree. Other degrees that we do hire for within that division would be like an information systems background or computer science, data analytics, things of that nature. And if you have one of those two degrees, you would also qualify for a performance audit division. And that division, in addition to hiring accounting majors and the MIS, they also look at political science. They look at business administration, public administration, because our performance division has a little bit more of a wider net in some of the things that the State General Assembly will ask us to look at. So if you are interested in applying for a vacancy in our office, and there doesn't even need to be a vacancy in our office if you want to apply, your application is going to be good for 4 months from the date you submit it, and you'll automatically be considered for any vacancy that does open up within that time frame. So being a constitutional office, we do not go through CMS. So there's not a really long wait list. There's not some of the restrictions that might be put on some of those executive branch agencies. So you would go to our website, just type in Illinois Auditor General, frankly, into a Google search engine, and it should be the first link that pops up. So this is our home page here. If you were to click on career information, you'll get that drop-down menu, and you can click on the job openings. You can look at select job descriptions, things of that nature. The application instructions will let you know to download the application into a Word file, fill it out, save it, and then you'll email it directly to me as a Word attachment. So one-stop shopping. The person who you're talking with today, myself, will also be the same one to get your application when you do send that. So you don't have to reintroduce yourself to someone. We try and keep things simple here. So some of the things that you might want to consider in applying for the Auditor General's office is, because we audit all the state agencies and universities, we have a very good reputation for our work product and the standards that we hold, not only the other state agencies too, but ourselves as well. And we contract out probably about 75% of our work to public accounting firms. Since we're mandated to audit every state agency and university at least once every 2 years, if we did that all completely in-house, we'd need probably about 500 staff if I were to estimate off the top of my head. So we only have 100 staff here, and that's why most of our work is done by public accounting firms. So if you do choose to move back into the private sector, that reputation of having worked for the Auditor General's office is still going to help you. Again, we really like people to stay with our office, but those who do choose to move on have always been able to springboard into some really nice, impressive careers elsewhere in both the private and the public sector. Secondly, the professional challenge. You are going to have an opportunity from your very first day to work on an audit team and to be able to start bringing your ideas about how to improve state government to the table. That's essentially what we do as auditors. We're going into a state agency and working with everyone from their entry-level staff up to their top chief internal auditors and directors, seeing what has worked well and maybe where we can make improvements. So if you have an accounting degree, we would probably put you in the area of the internal controls, looking at their financial statements, things of that nature. If you have an IS background, you're going to be looking at the controls over the state's MIS system. So for example, when people are taking their laptops home, are they using security passwords correctly? Do they have a disaster recovery plan in place if a particular laptop were to be stolen or were to be damaged? Or let's say we have a tornado that goes through the area. Do you have backup recovery plans in place there? So whatever your particular background is, we're going to be thrilled to be able to put those skills and experience to use on one of our state audits here. Last but certainly not least, we get all the same benefits that the other state agencies get as far as benefits. And boy, these really live up to their reputation. So as a state employee, you will start with 10 vacation days. You will get 12 sick days in a year. Also in a year, we now get 13 state paid holidays. And the Auditor General's office, of course, great health insurance, pension benefits. And we only have a 35-hour work week as standard full-time. Most other state agencies will have a 37.5-hour work week, but they mandate their employees to take a 15-minute break in the morning and afternoon. Years ago, they rewrote that rule for ourselves, having that option with the administrative code, and so we just eliminated our breaks. You can still get up, of course, get coffee, get something to eat. We just don't formally go somewhere and sit outside of our offices for 15 minutes, but that in the morning or the afternoon. That option, though, has allowed us to shorten our workday to a 7-hour workday. Now, you can work a 7-hour day, or you have the option to compress your work week and work, for example, an 8-hour day. That is going to allow you to be off every other Friday or every other Monday. You will then have the option to compress or to flex your hours. So you don't have to work 8:30 to 4:30, which is our standard hours. If you're more of an early bird, you can start as early as 7 in the morning, get out earlier in the day. You can start as late as 9 in the morning. And in addition to that, you can work an even longer day. So we have a lot of people in our office who work a 9-hour day, but that's going to allow you to be off every Friday or every Monday. And that is a wonderful option for people who are looking to have, a good work-life balance. You want to spend more time with family, friends, exploring other interests, things of that nature. And if the state holiday falls on your Friday or your Monday off, so for example, Labor Day, that always falls on a Monday. If you are off on Monday, you would get, for that week, Tuesday off as well. They don't take that extra day off away from you. And that's a wonderful way to have really long extended weekends without cutting into your personal or vacation time. And all of these benefits have been designed around the fundamental idea that we want people to enjoy a a life outside of their career. We try and make the job as interesting and interactive as possible, but we also like you, again, to have that life outside of your career. You will always have an opportunity to receive training. You're going to work with an audit team, so you're not going to be sent to an agency or working from home, not being able to have that direct connection to your other teammates and your supervisor. So you're going to work on the audit team, and everyone kind of gets their own piece of the puzzle. So they're very good at figuring out what you've probably learned in college that you can bring to the job or your experience. It's going to be common sense. So they're not looking over your shoulder constantly. They also don't want you to be overwhelmed with some type of new or complex policy that you're not going to be able to figure out on your own. So you're going to receive training in looking at how prior audits were done. You're going to be able to have one-on-one conversations with your mentor, usually going to be the supervisor on your team. And then you're also going to go to formal classroom training as well, so you feel comfortable with what you're doing there. And then, of course, you have that opportunity to interact with agency personnel trying to help make public policy work better for the state of Illinois. So I'm not going to stand here and say, if you come work for the Illinois Auditor General's office, you're going to live happily ever after. What you want to get out of your career is a very personal choice. But I can tell you that if you've ever had an interest in how state government operates, you like working in a team environment, you like helping to improve public policy, this would be a wonderful job for somebody interested in those areas. And the basics that we're looking for right now is a bachelor's degree in either accounting, information systems, or something similar in those areas. And we're hoping to have people start as early as mid-March, as far out as June if you're still working on your degree. And we frankly are always recruiting. So if this might not be the best fit for you right now, certainly keep us in mind for the future. We do have people still work the old-fashioned way, come to our office in Springfield, and we don't really allow for permanent remote location. So if you would not be willing to be in the Springfield area or commute here on a fairly regular basis, this might not be the ideal job at this time. But again, we are always open to people who are interested in government and trying to improve things. I'll have a few closing remarks, but at this point, I'll open things up to questions. This is my contact information. Phone number is 217-785-2642. That's my email address there, and then we, of course, have our website information there as well. Hopefully you've been able to hear me today. I coincidentally got a new computer just a couple of days ago, and if you've ever gone through that experience, there's sometimes different settings that have to be corrected. Usually my microphone works just fine, but I'm quite confident there's a setting that on this new system I need to pick up. But hopefully this has given you a good overview, and again, I'll be happy to take any questions that we might have.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jim. And we can hear you loud and clear, just letting you know that, so no worries. Again, if you do have any questions for Jim, please feel free to enter them into the chat. And of course, we will do our best to get an answer for you. In the meantime, Jim, I just do have a few questions that I'd like to ask you here before we wrap things up today. First question that I do have, and you might have touched upon this a little bit during your presentation, but maybe you want to highlight a particular success story. The question that I have for you is, what are the opportunities for advancement at the Illinois Office of the Auditor General? What's a good career trajectory look like for folks that might be tuning in?
Yes, great question. So when you start as an Auditor 1, you will automatically be promoted to an Auditor 2 at a year, presuming, of course, you make it off your probationary status there at 6 months. And the Auditor 2 salary will jump to just about $50,000 here in Springfield. If you ever transferred to Chicago, we traditionally have then added a 15% pay differential because we realize the cost of living increases there. But once you have been an auditor two for a year, you then have the opportunity to become an audit supervisor. And then from there, it goes audit manager, senior manager, and then ultimately assistant director and or director of one of the divisions. And we have had people, as I say, who've worked in this office their entire careers. That as we move through the generations, of course, people are going to want to try perhaps different areas, but because the fact that we are a nonpartisan office, we don't have to worry about someone coming in and trying to clean house, so to speak, or merging us with another agency. That's why we have that stability there. To touch upon some of our really unique opportunities, we do offer internships. So as long as you are in school, and I shouldn't even call that unique, but the uniqueness, we had somebody who interned with us starting as a junior in college. Usually they start about senior year. But because she had interned with us for so long, by the time she got her degree, she actually started as an auditor too. So she was actually able to save herself a year by coming in. And our interns are currently paid $19 an hour, and there's an opportunity to advance that amount if you stay with us as an intern longer than about a year and going from there. So hopefully that gives you some perspective there, Daniel.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jim. And Jim, the next question that I do have for you, and you actually touched upon a lot of questions that I did have here, so that is excellent. But one question that I do have for you is, how can a candidate stand out and get an interview, assuming they are qualified for the position in which they are applying? So is there any sort of experience or anything like that on a resume that you suggest folks highlight, maybe once they get to the interview process, maybe information that you suggest they'd include in that interview, anything to give folks kind of that competitive edge?
Sure. For our office, I would suggest the best way to stand out, of course, is if you've worked in government before in some capacity, or if you've had a course in college or two that related to government. That's always something nice to point out. But probably the best way is, our last question is a narrative, and it certainly doesn't have to be very long, 2 or 3 paragraphs, but if you can articulate why you want to work at the Auditor General's office, what inspired you, and oftentimes people go with more speed than the word I'm looking for, accuracy. What I would encourage people to do is to take your narrative and give it to somebody that you trust that's good with editing skills. So this isn't something that, is going to be published. I'm the only one who sees it, and the other people on our hiring team. But you want to make sure that you get, things grammatically correct and that your ideas flow well, because a lot of our job does require some writing skills. And that's probably the single easiest way to stand out, is to just have a well-written narrative that explains, and again, not too many words, of why you would want to work for our office.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jim. And Jim, again, I don't see any additional questions here in the chat. So I think we'll go ahead and start kind of the wrap up for today's session. Of course, I want to give you an opportunity to make any sort of concluding remarks or summary statements that you'd like before we wrap things up. So feel free to do so.
Sure. Well, again, we really appreciate that people considering the Auditor General's office. We realize that because the Auditor General in the state of Illinois doesn't run for office, we might not have as much name recognition, but we hopefully more than make up for that in the assignments that we have been given directly from the Constitution. This is a great way to help have an impact on public policy. There's really good job stability. And for those who are looking to move on with their careers, if the Auditor General is not a place you want to move up to, that you can grow your career having started first at the Auditor General's office. So hopefully you'll keep this in mind and just submit that application to me. You can also feel free to call or email me at any time, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jim. And again, I want to thank not only Jim for joining us today and presenting all of this wonderful information, but also the job seekers that are tuning in either now or at a later date. I just want to share a little bit of information with you folks. So today's session has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the Illinois WorkNet YouTube channel within 48 hours or thereabouts. Again, all of the wonderful information that Jim covered here today will be included in that recording. So if you want to go back, refresh your memory on anything that was covered before you, put together and submit an application for Jim, please feel free to do so. Again, you can find that at the Illinois WorkNet YouTube channel under the Virtual Job Fairs playlist. I will also be forwarding all of the registration information that I did receive for this event to Jim as well. So Jim, of course, if there's any folks that you want to follow up with, anything like that, please feel free to do so. Other than that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up today. Jim, again, thank you so much for joining today. And thank you all to the job seekers who joined as well. Hope you will all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Daniel.